Good evening. My name is Kristen Stratton, and I am one of the co-presidents for the Go Bananas organization. And I am very pleased to introduce to you today Jeff Nickerson from Nickerson Law. He has been one of our supporters for a very long time. He's a well-established attorney in the area and has been supporting the special needs community and practicing law that supports special needs families for a number of years. He's very well versed in what we're going to be talking about tonight, which is special needs planning. This is series number one of a four-part webinar series that he has offered to do for Go Bananas. These are all frequently asked questions and topics that come up on a regular basis in our group. So by all means, take advantage of the opportunity. If questions arrive, he loves an interactive conversation. So use the chat box. And as the opportunity comes up, I will feed those questions to Jeff. And then certainly at the end of the presentation, there will be opportunity for some question and answer. So again, use the chat box, and then at the very end, as time allows, we will have an open question and answer format. And then just one more time before I turn it over to Jeff, there is closed captioning available. I did put that in the chat box a few times, but I just want to make sure that everybody is aware. And then for right now, I will turn it over to Jeff so he can introduce himself. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Kristen. I always really enjoyed these presentations. I love sharing information. I have two adult sons with developmental disabilities. One with cerebral palsy, and one was diagnosed with autism at a very young age. Both doing very well, but they're now in their 30s. So I think the point is I've been through all this as you are also going through this. As Kristen said, this is the first of a four-part series. I used to try and combine everything I could think of of special needs into one program, and it was just too much. It was overwhelming. So we've separated it out into four different presentations. Today is going to be really focused on special needs, and then trust is a kind of our focus. I'm going to be touching really quickly on the other areas we're going to be talking about in the future presentations. It'll be just be a very top level, and then in those future presentations, we will be going in detail. Our next one is Tuesday, June 17th. We'll be talking about limited conservatorships versus powers of attorney. That's healthcare directive. Tuesday, July 8th, we'll be talking about financial awareness. This is kind of a new one for us. We're going to be talking about able accounts, life insurance, other matters. We may get into some simple tax stuff. And then on Tuesday, the 22nd, is benefits. That's so important. I find that a lot of people aren't taking advantage of all the benefits out there. I do want to state that next Tuesday is an abilities night at Storm Stadium. This Tuesday, July 10th. It should be a fun event. They've done a lot of special things. I'm sure that Kristen will be posting things on the Go Bananas page. But I'll be there and there to answer more questions and pass out all kinds of really cool swag. So um, I want to emphasize there's questions. So I enjoy having questions even during the event and afterwards. I am going to be respectful of your time. We will officially finish up at 7 o'clock, but I'll probably hang around if there's interest to address any more questions. So let's begin. Hopefully everybody can see my cover page, the special needs planning sheet. So we'll just jump right into this. And so you don't need to really know about me. I'm an attorney. I have a background in finance. I've been an attorney for 25 years, but I've actually been doing this for just about 13 years now. I was in aerospace doing something very, very different, and always wanted to get into special needs planning because of my sons. And it's something I really enjoy doing. I'm involved in various organizations. I serve on the board of directors for NAMI, the National Association of Mental Illness, for the Temecula. It's a really challenge. Anyways, very involved in the community, and I just enjoy sharing information. We always have to start off with this disclaimer. The following presentation is for legal information, not legal advice. I like every attorney starts off with that way. But why do we say that? Because when I'm talking with somebody, specific facts make a huge difference on the advice I'm going to get. If somebody is on SSI, I'm going to give them certain advice. If they're not on SSI but on SSDI, another very similar program, with the similar type of whole different rules, and my advice and this, I'm going to provide, and this, even the structure of our trust may be substantially different. So that's why we say that. But hopefully, you'll get a lot out of this. Presentation. So why plan? Really, there's two reasons to plan special needs, and we're really talking about setting up special needs trusts to maximize and coordinate government benefits. We want to make sure that your disabled family member is going to be able to maximize their government benefits. So you don't want to be leaving money that the government is say, aha, that's money that we get to take to use instead of going for your son or daughter. We want to make sure that funds in there, we can maximize the government benefits. Secondly, it sets a life plan for them. Statistically, your children are probably going to outlive you, and you want to make sure that they're taken care of in those later years. Very important to everybody. So agenda, we're going to focus today on the left-hand side of the chart. So we're going to really focus on trust. What is a trust? What are the types of special needs trust? What not to do? Some of the drafting, who are you going to be your trustees after you're gone? Trustee responsibilities, funding, who needs an S&T? And maybe importantly, what can you spend money on from a special needs trust? On the right side are all the things we're going to be covering over the next three sessions. However, I'm going to touch upon each one of them very briefly, give you a little taste of it, and then in the upcoming weeks, we'll dwell down much deeper into all those topics on the right side. Hugely important is benefits. We'd save that one for last. Benefits really drive everything we do when we're doing planning. So what's the best way to protect the benefits special needs trust? So you're going to need to have a special needs trust set up at some point. The question is not if, it's really when. And oftentimes, if you have a very young child, you don't need to do this now. You can wait till later. But at some point, you're going to need to set up some special needs trust. Those funds can go into a trust to protect your special needs child. Boy, the thunder up there is really wild. So what is a trust? What's this thing called a trust? Think of it as a bucket. Okay, a trust is actually a legal entity, kind of like a corporation, but it's not a corporation. It's a trust. It's a legal entity. So think of it as a trust as a bucket. You're going to put your stuff into this bucket. You're going to put your house. You're going to maybe retirement savings are going to go in here, other things. So instead of you owning the house directly, instead of you owning all these things directly, the trust is going to own them, but you're going to own the trust. It's a revocable trust, so you have the same control you have now, but it's separate from you. It's in this trust that's separate. And because of that concept, um, uh, it doesn't have to go through probate. And so typically what we do is we set up a family bucket or family trust. And then with those of us who have special needs family members, we set up a second, what we call a special needs trust. And we're going to focus on talking about that special needs trust. Same concept, same bucket. It's just a separate trust with some different rules for your special needs family member. Trusts have been around forever. They date back to Old England, and there's always three roles, three functions in every trust. Primary role is a trust maker. The trust maker creates the trust. You are the trust makers, also called grantor or settlor. I like trust makers. I'll be what it is. The trust maker is kind of the most powerful position. The next role is trust makers. The trust makers manage the assets. So what does that mean? It means you pay your mortgage bill, you pay the water bill, you do all the things you normally do anyways, okay? You're the trustee. And then what you do is you name successor trustees in the event you become ill or pass away. Those successor trustees step right in, assume your role, and keep things going. So it's a seamless type structure. There's no probate. There's no government involvement. It's a seamless, smooth action when somebody becomes ill or passes away. Finally, the beneficiary. So in a family trust, you as the trust maker, you as and also as the trustee, you're also the beneficiary, and anybody that's dependent upon you, which is going to be, of course, your children, and especially your dependent children. When we look at this, the special needs trust, similar type structure, you're going to be the trust maker. You're going to make the set of the trust. You're going to be the trustee. You're going to manage any assets in that trust if there are any before you pass away, and then you're going to name successor trustees. And then this is where it's different. Your disabled beneficiary is the sole beneficiary of that special needs trust. That special needs trust is locked up. So funds in that third party special needs trust can only be spent for your disabled family member. It cannot be used for any other purpose. It is a rock solid way to make sure money is saved for your disabled family member. I can't emphasize that enough. It's one of the huge advantages. If you have creditors, or if let's say your child has creditors, medical bills, of course, they cannot get into that special needs trust. Very important. It's one of those things that everybody needs eventually. There are three types of special needs trusts, and they're very different. I'll first talk about first party trust. What does first party trust means? First party trust means it's the beneficiary's money. So it's your special needs individual that is the first party trust. And here when I'm talking about special needs, I'm really talking about anybody. It could be somebody with special needs. It could be somebody injured into an accident, a work incident, or whatever. Somebody who needs those government benefits. It's the disabled person's own money. So typically where we see this, there could be a lawsuit because of a car accident. They receive money. It could be because of a work incident. If they're working, and they're entitled to money. That has to, by law, go into a first party special needs trust. The big, huge disadvantage about a special needs trust is that when that person passes away, Medi-Cal is going to come in and sweep up those dollars and take them back. So we only want to use a first party special needs trust when we have to, okay? Then there's pooled trusts, and then there's third party trusts. I forgot I had separate trusts for anyone, so separate charts for each one of these. So I'm going to move on to the next. Like I talked about the first party special needs trust, the disabled person's money. It can be a work injury, a personal injury, or inheritance. We don't want inheritance money going into a first party trust. We want inheritance money going into a third party trust. The third party trust is the much more common, and by far we want inheritance going into that third party trust. So what does it do? It maintains those government benefits. The big disadvantage, that state payback. When that person passes away, again, I repeat this because it's such a negative, Medi-Cal, Medicaid is coming in and sweep up those dollars. There are some rules. The beneficiary must be under age 65, can be established a parent, grandparent, legal guardian, or the beneficiary if competent. We do run across these fairly frequently. The most disappointing kind I come across with is those inheritance ones. I get a call, grandma and grandpa, with the best intentions, leaves $50,000, $100,000 to our special needs family member. Uh-oh, they're now going to lose their SSI, Medi-Cal, and so forth. So we got to move out fast. We need to move that funds into a first party trust in the same month the money comes in, just so they don't lose their benefits. Doesn't happen a lot, but we get those phone calls once a couple times a month. Pool trust. So this is an interesting thing. Pool trust is where a nonprofit sets up a trust to cover all of their clients that have received money. A pool trust can be either what we call first party money, the beneficiary's money, can be somebody else's money. Um, these organizations are really check writing services. So really the only advantage about a pooled trust, and it's a big one, is the costs are very low. Costs are very low to manage, very low to set up. So the funds go into this pooled trust, and the administrators in pooled trust will just write checks based on predetermined criteria. It's a check writing service. It really is better for somebody who's fully competent. Maybe they've been injured, severely injured, they're in a wheelchair, they're receiving government benefits, but they're fully competent. They can manage their own finances. A pool trust is a good thing to do. The negative, and I think this is a pretty big negative, is when that person passes away, all the funds in that pool trust go to the nonprofit. Um, I think I think that creates a conflict of interest that concerns me. Again, it's a check writing service. Okay, the most common trust that we do by far, probably 80 to 90% of it, is the third party special needs trust. So again, we have a third party special needs trust. This is that separate bucket that the money's gone into. It's either going to be funded during your lives, or oftentimes it just sits there and waits until you pass away, and then money goes into that special needs trust. The big advantage about a third party trust, again, it's the money is managed by you or your successor trustee, and the funds can only go through to your beneficiary. It's what they call an irrevocable trust. So nobody can change the beneficiaries. And the purpose, maintain those government benefits and set up a plan for their financial management. The huge advantage is there's no payback from a third party special needs trust. So when that individual passes away, if there's any funds remaining, it would go to whoever you've named in setting up that special needs trust. Again, the special needs trust, the third party special needs trust. It's really the best legal structure to protect special needs family members. Again, it's the key thing to remember, it's the funds can only be used for the beneficiary, but it's not the beneficiary's money. And I remind people multiple times about this. So where this comes up is if you're, let's say, applying for SSI, or you're applying for Medi-Cal or whatever, or you're doing an annual check for Medi-Cal and Social Security. One of the questions they'll always ask is, does your proposed beneficiary, the current beneficiary who's receiving SSI or Medi-Cal, do they have a trust? What's the answer? No, they don't have the trust. The trust is your trust. It's your money. There's the beneficiary. Hugely important. We get people all the time that and say, "Oh yes, just Jeff Nickerson set us up a special needs trust," and they go, "Oh well, we've overpaid you. You're gonna have to pay the money back," and so forth. They come into my office, a big panic. I say, "The third party trust into your local agency, and the issue will go away," and it always does. So what not to do? And unfortunately, I hear these things. So what do people do instead of setting up a special needs trust? First of all, they leave money to their special needs family member. I see this all the time, and it's always after the fact. I get that phone call. Hey, our special needs individual, either the grandparents or the parents themselves, left money to the person who's receiving benefits, and now there's a problem. And so we can fix that, but usually the only way we can fix it is at that point, since the beneficiary's money, we need to set up a first party trust. The second thing, which I really hate hearing, is they disinherit their special needs child. No, you don't disinherit your special needs child. There's still a lot of attorneys that will recommend that. And I had one as recently as a month ago. I got a call from a family. Oh, my attorney recommended we just disinherit our special needs child so they'll receive benefits. Well, yes, but um, okay, the other one I hear a lot. Well, I'm going to leave their assets to their brothers and sisters and request that they take care of their sibling. Well, hopefully they will. They could be evil and say, well, now that mom and dad died, I'm just going to keep the money myself because it's my money. I hope that doesn't happen very often. I really do. I hear these horror stories, but not very much. What I do hear is two problems. First of all, they get this money and they're supposed to use it for their sibling or part of it for sibling. They throw it into their joint check account with their wife or husband, It's now community property. A couple of years later, they get divorced. They got to split the community property in half, and now the divorced E gets half the money. That clearly was not the intent when people leave money to the sibling. The other thing is personal injury. And so what happens if you've received money, mom and dad have left one of the siblings all this money, and the siblings forgot to pay their auto insurance bill, and they have an at-fault accident. Creditors are going to swoop in, and they're going to get everything they can from that they own. If they own outright money that parents thought were going to go to the special needs child, but it's not walled off in a special needs trust, creditors are going to come in and grab that money and take it. And I've heard that way too many times. So that's a good reason to make sure that money is walled off in a special needs trust. Able account will also do that same, and I'm going to get into able accounts here a little bit today, more in our subsequent meetings. So drafting a special needs trust, there's very specific rules and language that has to be included in a special needs trust. When we're creating, we're quoting federal laws, and these things will always get reviewed. So there's a requirement that a special needs trust reviewed. Oh, I'm sorry, gets sent in, and when it gets funded, when money goes into that trust, you are required to send the copies of those trusts into Social Security and Medi-Cal for their review. Um, as a result, a well-written special needs trust will have what I would call magic terms. Those magic terms will that we know that the reviewers are looking for. We actually sometimes repeat it multiple times. So when they're reviewing the documents, they're going to find it. Some people will write what we call embedded special needs trust when they're doing the family trust. So they do the family trust, and then instead of having a separate special needs trust, they'll have language in this family trust that says money that goes into Susie, our special needs daughter, goes into this trust, and has maybe 10 pages of language that addresses that. Um, that's certainly far better than nothing by far, but we advocate having that separate document for one reason, just the cumbersome, because probably your special needs individual, son or daughter, is going to outlive you by many years, many decades, and trying to manage an individual through a special needs trust that's part of a family trust where everybody else is gone or disappeared, it's difficult. More importantly, if you have a standalone special needs trust, other people can put money into it. So if you created a special needs trust, grandma and grandpa want to leave money, they can leave money directly to that third party special needs trust or anybody else. You have a neighbor or a rich friend, they can leave money into that third party special needs trust. Again, creditors or nobody can get to it. If money is in that third party trust is being used for something other than the beneficiary, there's stealing going on. One of the things that are part of the special needs trust that a well-written special needs trust will have is reference to what we call a memorandum of intent. This memorandum of intent is a document that you will write up that will share information about your family member, things they like, things they don't like. I like to think of this as a living document that you just continue to write to share information. This is especially, I think, valuable and especially important where families they don't have a whole slew of family members involved. I often see in the special needs community that oftentimes the special needs child is the only child, and there are no other siblings and so forth. And I think it becomes especially valuable at that point. I probably have about a third of my clients that prepare these. Oftentimes, many don't think they're needed, and they probably will not if they have a large family member. But certainly, if there's only one person, they should have that.
Jeff, you have a couple questions.
This is a perfect time, perfect break for that.
Um, First question is regarding knowing whether or not selecting a special needs trust is appropriate for children when they're young and not knowing if they're going to require that level of support in the future.
So I come across this frequently, and so if mom and dad are healthy, and you don't have you're short on money and so forth, you can wait, okay, and until later years. If mom and dad have some health problems, or sometimes mom and dad have gotten late in life and they're getting up there in years, probably a good idea to do that. I certainly caution you don't want to, as we all know, raising a special needs family member is expensive. It costs more money to provide care, even with all the government benefits. It's expensive to have a special needs child. So I don't want people to go into bankruptcy or debt just to create that special needs trust. There's alternatives. So if somebody is really tight on money, we'll say, hey, listen, if we'll create a trust, or we'll just even do a will, and the will will authorize the creation of a special needs trust when they pass away. So that's one inexpensive way to get around the actual creation of the special needs trust. Now, of course, years downstream, it's going to be a lot more expensive than it is now to create that document. Now, what I found most people really start planning is when the kids are older. Now they're in their, the special needs and family members now is in their teens, they're 14, 15, 16. Certainly before they turn 18, you've got to make some major decisions on conservatorships and so forth. Clearly, I think that's a good time to put something together. But even then, if somebody is really struggling with money, we can do something that's just very cheap. It's not as good as doing a full family trust and a special needs trust, but it'll solve the problem as opposed to doing nothing. I know our office, we're very flexible. I had a conversation just what, a week ago with somebody who I know was struggling financially, and she wanted to set up the full-blown family trust, the full-blown trust, and her kids were fairly young, and I was really encouraging her, let's hold off. I don't want you to get yourself in debt having to pay for an expensive estate plan when you really don't need it. Everybody's healthy, everybody's good. That's a long answer, but hopefully that clarifies.
Yeah, I think the a second part to that question would be that if it's not if the children are would be considered having low support needs or sometimes what we would call high functioning, would it still be appropriate to create a special needs trust if it's not necessarily expected that they might require supported living or, situation where they might need to be financially supported in the future, if maybe that's indeterminate?
Sure. So the language, so if a special needs trust is created, a well-written special needs trust will include language that says the trust can be ended or terminated or and if it's not needed. Okay. So that's always included in the special needs trust. But if you're not, but you're not sure and you don't want really to create the special needs trust up front, we always put language in there that says the successor trustee that's then serving at that time can make the decision based on circumstances at that time whether to create that special needs trust or just leave it outright. So,
And
the-
then maybe for someone like that, who might not need the full protection and benefit of a trust, would that be a time to consider an ABLE account then?
yes, the Abel's account are great. I'm going to get into that in a little bit more than a lot more detail later. I love Able accounts. Um, and the but it's not a good estate planning thing. Okay, so you're limited to the gift tax amount. So this year you're limited to $19,000. So it's not a good tool to use after you pass away, and because it's limited to $19,000. Well, and that'll go up every year. But it's a great tool. I always tell people if you're thinking about funding a special needs trust or an ABLE account, put the money into an ABLE account. It grows tax-free. It's huge. And this is something I was going to save later. I may even repeat twice today and next time we talk. If you have a young child who you know is has a diagnosis, any sort of diagnosis, autism, cerebral palsy, or whatever. Open up an able account. Start putting money in. They're very young. Put so little money in that you don't even miss it. Of course, more is always better, but start off putting open the account, 2 years old, put $10 a week, $10 a month, whatever, something you don't even missing. Over those years, that money is going to grow a huge amount. A little bit of money on a regular basis when you start young will just grow huge. One of my biggest regrets, well, they didn't have able accounts back when my kids were young, but I think early investments at a small amount really will grow dramatically.
Okay, two more questions and then I'll let you get on to your second half of your presentation. One is regarding whether or not it's appropriate to fund a special needs trust with an existing HELOC or a home equity line of credit on a home as a funding source for a special needs trust. And then a separate question, it's regarding the conversion of SSI to SSDI. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, that's a different question. The second question was whether or not a work-related um, money that is paid out and put into a special needs trust, if that is going to impact SSI eligibility. I think there was clarification on that. So two different questions.
Okay, so I don't think it would make this is really more of a financial analysis question, but I don't think you would want to take out a loan to put it into a special needs trust unless for some reason the the rate of return on the whatever account was in the special needs trust was substantially higher than the uh, than the interest rate, which is probably not likely. Most loan companies don't make loans that are less than an interest rate. So I would think for most people, I think the general answer we know that really wouldn't make a lot of economic sense. And I don't even know if it's so, yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Um, the second one was I'm sorry. So can you repeat that, Kristen,
Yes,
again?
the second question was regarding receiving it sounds like maybe like a workers' compensation payout, um, and whether and not if that was the funding source for the special needs trust, if that would be um, impacting SSI benefits. And it doesn't sound like it would be based on what you said, but I want to clarify
Oh
based on
no,
that question.
so receiving a workers' comp settlement or a personal injury settlement, absolutely, that's a classic reason to see why you would need to set up a first party trust and put that money into a first party trust. Because absolutely, if you receive a settlement, um, then it's gonna hit SSI or um, or Medi-Cal or whatever. So it'll definitely affect their benefits. So you definitely want that included in there. If um, typically with a minor that's going to receive a settlement, then as part of that agreement, you'll want to have a court order um, moving that money into a special needs trust. Most personal attorneys don't know about this. Really important. Same thing, really, really important for divorces. That's probably even a more common situation. So if there's a divorce and it's typically the husband that's paying because the wife's taking care of the child, but typically you'll definitely want a court order saying that any child support payments must go into that first party special needs trust. If not, it'll impact every payment will be considered income and will impact SSDI. So yes, both those situations, you're going to want those funds going into a first party special needs trust.
They were clarifying the HELOC question. They were just asking if you can have both simultaneously, a special needs trust and a HELOC.
And that's not really, I mean, that I think that's kind of they're unrelated. If you have a loan, um, I think they're just totally unrelated. I don't see any reason why you couldn't have both.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, that's it for questions for now.
Okay, so one of the biggest challenges, in fact, the number one challenge for when we're setting up a special needs trust is who you're going to name as the successor trustee. It's always the toughest question. Um, Typically, the first answer I get is, I want to name the sibling, and the sibling's going to be the successor trustee after I'm gone. That may be a perfect choice, and in fact, I think more often than not, it is a perfect choice. But does that person know how to manage, is it got the skills or knows how to get skills to manage funds, do budgeting, just take care of all the things that need to be done in managing funds. Being a trustee of a special needs trust is work, and it can be a lot of work. The second thing is family dynamics. So if you have, especially if you have a high functioning um, individual and one sibling, you can imagine the issues could arise if one sibling is managing the funds of another sibling. That that's that's always kind of going to be a stressful thing. So so I think you need to think carefully on that. I'm a big fan of of using professional fiduciaries, maybe not as as a first and second because parents want to name the siblings, but maybe as a backup, as a third choice to name that successor trustee as a professional fiduciary. They're not going to have the emotion tied into managing those funds. If to be a professional fiduciary, you have to go to take a whole bunch of classes, you have to pass a test, you have to be bondable and do all these things. So if there's a decent amount of money in the trust, I always encourage people at least name the professional fiduciary as a backup if things don't work out naming the siblings. Um, That was one other point I was going to make. I blanked on that. There's also, I know what I'm going to say. So the trustee is not necessarily the caregiver. So you need to separate those two roles. The trustee is in charge of managing the money. The caregiver, of course, is providing caregivers. Now, very often they're the same person, but they don't have to be. So in your mind, you have to separate those activities. Um, we in our trust, most well-written trusts, there is as a role for an advocate. So sometimes we'll name an advocate, especially if there's not many siblings or family members. I had one recently that they wanted to name a neighbor who had been very involved in their child's life for 20 plus years, but they were horrible about managing money. They had no ability to manage money. So we had a professional fiduciary as the trustee, and then we named the advocate. A trustee is required to listen and take into account the advocate's questions and desires and recommendations. Not required to act upon that, but is required to listen and so forth. And that's a tool we use, not always, but not infrequently either. Trust administration responsibilities. So this is just an example of things that can happen, and manages the assets, distribute funds, keeps records. You got to keep records of expenditures. Tax returns need to be filed. Can serve an advocate if they're doing rent, provide arranges for housing, arranges for caregiving. Um, I try. Oh, one of the things that I frequently get is the successor trustee I've named, are they liable for things going badly? Well, they're required to, as long as they're using due diligence and their skills to make things manage it, there's no personal liability. Now, if they're stealing funds or something, then that's a whole different story. They're criminally liable. Um, Managing benefits. So they need to be managing those benefits, maximizing those benefits. Um, And the trustee is entitled to compensation. That can be a touchy subject for a lot of people, but this is a lot of work, and we generally include language that says the trustee certainly is entitled to any out-of-pocket costs and entitled to compensation. Funding a special needs trust. How do you fund a special needs trust? And we're going to address this in more in detail when we get to our presentation on money and money management and so forth. I'm a big fan of life insurance. The life insurance is a great way to buy. So if something happens near term, if the plane goes down or whatever, there's a big chunk of money that go into that life insurance. If and we'll talk about the difference between whole life and term insurance. Big difference. Most people don't understand that. IRAs are a great way to fund a special needs trust. There is a special rule that a couple of years ago they passed the Secure Act, I think it's called, that said that when an IRA is goes down to a child, they have 10 years to spend it. If it goes down to a special needs individual or a special needs trust, it's a lifetime distribution. So if there's a significant amount of money, and a lot of people have a significant amount of assets that's tied up in their maybe their 401ks or IRAs or so forth, you might want to just having more of that money going into the special needs trust because of the longer stretch out on how that money can come out. Certainly inheritance, gifts, so forth. Key thing though, one of the things that somebody's going to leave money to the special needs trust, they have to make sure that either in their or when they're writing a check or when they're leaving an inheritance in the trust, they must put the title into the name of that document. So who needs a special needs trust? Certainly, all of us who have developmental disabilities, family members, but it also can apply to a lot of others. We have a lot of people that, the three kids are great, doctors, lawyers, accountants, and then the drug addict or alcohol and so forth. Mental illness, that's a tough one. That is really tough one. Went on the board of our Temecula NAMI organization. It's very frustrating. Mental illness is not considered a developmental disability. I think it should be, but it's not. And so a lot of the benefits that are out there, like regional centers and so forth, are not eligible for those mental illness. And of course, accidents. That's another, if you're getting government benefits, that's another reason to set up a special needs trust. When we're setting up special needs, when we're doing planning, we're gathering information on the family assets. We're gathering information on the family structure. Most importantly, we're gathering information on benefits. We're creating a plan that protects those benefits and creates a structure for care and financial management. The majority of the time when I'm talking to people in my office is advising on benefits they're not receiving and protecting those benefits. You can't do special needs planning without knowing benefits. And if you caught the theme here, benefits is key. I'm kind of finishing up my talk here right here on special needs trust and trust in general. Is there and then I was just going to go through real quickly on some of these other things that we'll be discussing in depth over the next few weeks. Are there any questions out there that I should address for the special needs planning, Kristen?
Right now, there's a couple of people that are asking if they have one more. One says if they have more than one child, do they need more than one trust? Special needs trust.
Yeah, this is one of the things I struggle with, and I've kind of gone back and forth, and actually gone to I attend these professional seminars year round just to try and stay up on things, and we can set up what we call a special needs pot trust, which includes um, multiple family members who may be disabled. But most people agree that it's best to set up separate special needs trust. So the way I structure it, I really insist on special needs trust. It's not double the price. for having two special needs trusts or anywhere near that. But I'll set up a special needs trust for each individual, and then I'll put specific language in there in both the trust and actually the family trust also that says the trustee has the authority to move money back and forth because one child is always going to need more than the other, and you often don't know that until it comes. So the short answer is I encourage people to set up a separate special needs trust for each family member that they think may need it. Anything else?
I think you had just some more interest regarding the funding through a life insurance policy, if you want to expand on that a little bit.
Um, sure. So I have people come into my office and they say, "Well, I have a $500,000 policy for my work." It's a term policy, and so the odds are extremely high you're going to outlive your term policy. So clearly, having a big policy through work is great. When I work for a large corporation, I always maxed out the amount. Um, but whole life is really the best policy to go to. I made the mistake until I was in my 60s to buy a whole life policy, and it's very expensive. Another one of my biggest regrets, I seem to have a lot of regrets, but one of my biggest regrets is I didn't buy a whole policy when I was much more younger. It would have been far, far, far cheaper, and it just earns money over and over and over again. And so it's just a great way to accumulate a lot of money over the years. The earlier you start, the more you're going to save up, and that is going to be the best way to fund the special needs trust. A term policy is probably never going to be able to fund a special needs trust. I think the payout on term policies is like 1%. Um,
You have a question about Able account. I think I will take that one and just say you should come to our seminar on, I believe that one's July 8th to deep dive into that. But if you want to briefly touch on what that is and how to get set up, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, able accounts are I'm a big advocate. If you have a disabled child, open up an able. Just do it. It should be a Cal able account. A Cal able account is the only able account that does not require a payback. So you can only do a Cal able account. A lot of these there used to be just governments were doing it, and then recently a lot of private companies are doing it. Got to be a Cal label. Fortunately, we live in California, so you can open up a Cal label account. Basically, you can put up to the gift tax limit in every year. This year it's $19,000. It grows tax free. If it hits $100,000, now that would take a lot of years to build up. And most of us don't have $19,000 to chunk in every year. But at $100,000, it suspends SSI, so you never want that to happen. But it's just a great way to save money. It's easy to open up an account and easy to automatically have money transferred from your own checking account into the Able account. The rule about spending is the same rule as um, special needs trust. It's the sole benefit rule. So as long as the money that's coming out is for the sole benefit of of your special needs individual, it's an appropriate expenditure. So maybe medical bills that are not covered, or even vacations. That's an appropriate way to spend money. So like I said, we'll get more into details about the history and so forth, but I think it's just a great way to accumulate funds.
The next question you have is how do you go about hiring a fiduciary?
So what we do is we actually just put the language that says a California licensed professional fiduciary. The reason why is it might be decades until you actually need to use a professional fiduciary. When I first started, I actually would put specific names down, and then the people would leave the business, they'd retire, whatever. So don't try and hire one now, well, unless you need one now. But that's a different story. But if you're just planning for the future, we just list the role as opposed to a specific person. And okay, and professional fiduciaries, they have to be licensed. So there's a list of them, and under I think the California Secretary of State. There's also an organization called PFAC, Fiduciaries of California, something like that. And they have a lot of professional fiduciaries out there. And they all have websites and information and so forth. So if you're actually looking for a specific one, it's relatively easy. I know here in our area, I work with a couple, but they're kind of hard to find in our area. There's a lot more down in San Diego and so forth than they are here in Murrieta or Temecula.
You have a question, just clarification again on the life insurance, I think, with regard to who is the insured, and then how does that get attached to the special needs trust?
Sure. So the insured is the parents. All right. Because that's when that's so the insured is a parent and or both parents, and there's area assigned. You can have second to die policies or separate policy in each one. There's a whole combination of different ones. And so the funds can typically what we'll do is we'll have the funds go to the spouse and then to either the directly to the family trust or to the special needs trust, depending on the particular family situation. So it's and the beneficiary designations can be easily changed. So that's how we generally. So if it's a young family, we're going to for sure name the spouses. If it's an affluent, wealthy family, we may just have to go directly to the special needs trust. Depends on the circumstances, and like I said, that can be the beneficiary designations can be easily changed.
Okay, I'm just looking through questions. Is anybody else have questions? I'm going to turn my camera back on just so you can get a little giggle. I'm actually doing this by by candlelight right now because I lost power about halfway through because of the lightning storm.
Wow, wow.
So we have candles going right now.
That's
Uh,
exciting.
yeah, just a very interesting way to have a presentation. Okay, I do not see any more questions, but that doesn't mean there aren't any. But I do like that you are chunking this a little more in bite-sized pieces in the 4-part series. And so I think that that's definitely helping with regard to our Q&A is this is a lot more digestible. Okay, so let's see. Yes, thank you so much. Someone says they're going to be reaching out for a consultation. A couple thank yous to you. All right. Well, I think in that case, I have already done so. I will do again. Ooh, I just had lightning flash behind me.
Nice.
Um, I will go ahead and make sure that Jeff, his email is already in the chat box, but I will drop it again in there right now so you don't have to go back and fish through it. Jeff is very modest. He does this whether or not he got business from this. Truly, it's not a sales pitch, but I will go ahead and say we personally used him for our special needs trust, and his staff, his paralegal, everyone on his team was very professional and very pleasant to work with. So I really personally enjoyed working with his team. I really appreciate your time and your knowledge. As always, it's very helpful information. It's such important information, and every time I hear it, I learn something new. And so hopefully you will be able to join us for the next 3 series that we have coming up, the dates of which are all posted both on our public Facebook page, on our private group, on our Instagram page, on Jeff's social media. It's pretty much posted anywhere you can. So make sure you register again so that that Zoom link comes to your email, but it should be the same link that you accessed tonight.
Also, we are recording the session, so we'll probably get it up on our website a week from now. So if you want to rewrite it, rewatch it or share it with somebody else, it'll be on our website.
Wonderful. Okay, well, if there's no further questions, someone is asking, what is your website?
Oh, if you just Google my name, Nickerson Law, um,
Yeah, pops right up.
it'll pop right up. Uh,
All right. Well, thank you everybody for your time, and it was nice seeing you. And again, your email address is in the chat box. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to either one of us.
Great. Thanks. Hey, take care. Bye.
All right, take care. Bye bye.